How to face tough stuff. I really want to say something else, but for right now, I'll keep it clean. How to face tough stuff. 10% happier self-care journey. Today is December 26th. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you for hanging for a few minutes. So today we're going to talk for a few minutes about how to face tough stuff. And one of the things that I've learned is that the first key to facing tough stuff is a simple and small gesture. And it goes a little something like this. Just taking a deep breath. Real talk. Straight up and down, real talk. Taking a deep breath. In fact, so much so, and I've been learning this a lot lately on this self-care journey as I've been studying. Like, so much so that if we could, I just want to take like 10 seconds just for you to do that with me, for us to do that together, wherever you are. And then after that, we'll get into the information that I've come across today in my session. So let's just take a deep breath in and out. Take another deep breath in and out. One more final deep breath in and out. So, I've really learned in this past, month or so, just how important that practice is. And there's so many things that's important that's on the, the path of self-care. But I definitely will say that the coolest thing about being able to take a deep breath is that it's always accessible. Like, you don't have to go anywhere to take a deep breath. It's right there. You don't need to be seated in a comfortable chair. You don't need to be laying on a mat. You don't need to have incense burning and tea. This peppermint tea, by the way, something to get you a pep in your step during your day if you need it. But you don't need tea. You don't need essential oils. You don't need candles. You don't need spiritual gurus and just taking a deep breath in and out, and just really focusing on your breath, whether you're driving, whether you're in line at the bank, wherever you are. It literally allows you the first step to decompressing and to giving yourself self-care. Can you attest to that? If you can, drop a line. Thanks to everybody who's watching. Let me do this real quick. I'm going to paste the notes that I'll be going over right there in the chat so that you can see them, and they are there. So you can scroll to the top of the chat and you can see exactly the notes that I'm going over. How to face tough stuff. Okay. When we suffer, this is a biggie right here. We suffer because we think something is either a total mistake or that there's some grand predestined purpose for what's happening in our lives. You choose the purpose based on your response to your experience. Now, that's a personalized note to something they mentioned at the very beginning of this course. And for those that don't know, the name of the course that I'm going through is called 10% Happier. It's an app that you can download on your phone and has a ton of meditation courses by various professors, authors, doctors. It's really good. So this first note is personalized. We suffer because we think something is either a total mistake or that there's some grand predestined purpose for what's happening in our lives. You choose the purpose based on your response to your experience. This is something I thought about a long time ago. It was actually the beginning of, now what will be my secular humanist journey, or coming to the place of secular humanism being like my path, in life. Because I realized that, one of the reasons that we suffer is we can't deal with what we're experiencing because we think that something has totally gone wrong. Now, before I go into this, let me separate just pure cause and effect. Like, yeah, if you're exposed to some kind of disease and you get sick, this is cause and effect, or something good happened. I don't even want to make it like it's just about bad things happening. But that's life. Things happen. We spend so much time in the perspective of like whether it's a mistake or trying to figure out what is the purpose to this, that sometimes that brings us about a lot of struggling, suffering, and stressing. And most people don't think about it, like trying to figure out the purpose, even if you're trying to think about like the positive purpose is not so bad because it comes with like good feelings. But when you're looking at something that's happened that's unfortunate and you're trying to figure out the purpose, like you can literally wreck your brain about that. And all of us have our different definitions of what it means to figure out the purpose. Some people believe in praying and waiting for a sign or for someone to say something to them from the supernatural realm. Some people look for signs, out in their day to day. Everybody has their different paths. But the thing that I notice is that, in my opinion, what happens no matter what our path is we try to figure out the purpose, and then we decide what's going to give us the answer to that. And then we desperately look to that thing to show the signs, and then we grab whatever we feel it's telling us, and we use that to then say this is the purpose. I honestly, from a secular humanist perspective, feel like we're actually imbuing the purpose, even when we think we're getting it from somewhere else. And the reason why I say that is because you could take one experience and it can go different ways. We see this every day in our own lives and in the lives of other people. You can have one experience that one person takes as something terrible and that it wasn't supposed to happen, and another person say this is exactly what's supposed to happen and it's better, for the better. I really feel like at this point it's like beauty in the eye of the beholder. It is literally, in fact, I might even do a spin on that and put that up as a quote. Purpose is in the in the eye of the beholder. So, but the main point I'm trying to make here is that I realize no matter what side we fall on, whether we think something is a mistake and we're trying to figure that out, or it's great or some kind of grand, better purpose, trying to figure that out, we can literally wreck our brains and stress over something like this that doesn't even require the shot, but we can not realize that that's what we're doing. So I would say that you decide the purpose of the things that happen in your life based on what you want to see out of it, like what you want it to do for you. If you want it to motivate you, if you want it to make you go through grief, like whatever you want is what you'll see in whatever you're facing. So that's my thoughts on that. The second thing here is acceptance is the key to peace. It's another biggie, another biggie. For years, even in my own different spiritual paths that I went through, I've noticed that all of them were based on expectation over acceptance. And this is going to be a completely separate podcast that I do as well on this. And I might even do it later today. But I realized that a lot of these paths are based on expectation over acceptance when it comes to rewards, when it comes to certain things in this life and the afterlife. And the truth of the matter is, like, it's understandable because to expect from a positive perspective in different scenarios can be a very beneficial. It could be a very beneficial characteristic, a very beneficial perspective, like for sure. When it actually makes sense to expect something, that's the biggie. I mean, like, I had a quote that I put up on Facebook that says, sometimes, let me see if I can get it real quick here, because I think this particular quote nails it. And sorry, I gotta do a quick search for it. Naivete. Okay, so I said, this is a while back. In fact, I'll even comment on it so it comes back up in the feed. Sometimes we're so afraid to face reality that we faith ourselves into full-on naivety and delusion. And I swear this is a topic I'll be talking about for the rest of my life, because the truth of the matter is, a lot of times we don't see that this is the case because of the benefits in much more realistic circumstances. You know, if you're dealing with a cold or something like that, I'll just use a simple example. It's very good to be optimistic about that. It's very good to expect a better outcome, and all that means to you as an individual is very realistic, because more than likely that cold will get better, and that would make sense as far as a mindset. If you're dealing with, and this is out of respect for people that even are, if you're dealing with a terminal illness, you know, and that kind of thing, like, to have certain expectations are unrealistic, and not only they're unrealistic, but they set you up for depression and anxiety, because you're not actually looking at the situation in the right way, in context, you know. And a lot of us deal with that, and then what we do is we get to the point where, in trying to accept it, we actually are accepting yet another expectation, or trying to make sense out of it when it really just may be a thing. So again, I can go on about this, but I'm gonna stop myself, because that's a real passionate subject for me. And what I'll do is I'll go into that even deeper on my next podcast. Look out for it. The Aaron Hill Podcast. You can listen to it anywhere online. Next note is meditation and mindfulness teaches you how to feel feelings without being overwhelmed by them. It's another thing I realized years ago. I used to call it the wedge. And the wedge, I would imagine in my mind, was like a little wedge that you put in a door to keep it open. And to me, that metaphor, that example, was like, as I was studying, you know, deeply, you know, different paths and everything, and looking at like some of the underlying grand, you know, principles that were helpful and that every path, you know, related to. There was value in being able to separate your internal experience in your mind from an external experience in reality, because of the fact that there are some times when the two are different. There are many times when the two are different. And this is another nuanced topic, because if someone is experiencing something in their mind that is real, like it's a reality. It's a reality that is a localized reality to them, and that is very real. Outside of that, though, there may be a completely different reality going on that they are unable to tap into, unaware of, or they just can't access because of the reality that they're experiencing. We go through this all the time. So, you know, with mindfulness, you learn how to feel your feelings and feel your experience without being overwhelmed by them, while still being able to put that wedge there so that you can see that there's a possibly another way to feel about this, or another reality that's going on that you could tap into. And that allows you to deal with your feelings a lot better, because when you're just overwhelmed by them, then it's a snowball effect, you know. Your feelings have control of you, and that's a wrap from there, unless you regain your mind control back by practicing meditation and breathing and practicing mindfulness. Speaking of which, mindfulness will be the word of the day today. For those that tune into my a word a day, and even though that's not a new word to me, I'm loving the definition of that word and the new meaning that it has in my life, since I realized that the definition was a bit more expanded than what I currently, or what I knew before, what I previously knew. Okay, there's not always rhyme and reason to why things happen in our lives. I gotta say that again, because I know that's the biggest thing we struggle with. It's as a secular humanist, for many people, and as an atheist, many people say like, how do you deal with the things you don't know? And I'm just like, one day at a time, like one emotion at a time. Not to go off on this rant, because again, that's another topic for another day, but what I've come to the conclusion of is, it's just, and this is a personal decision, so this isn't something that I can say is for everybody or everybody's ready for, or is everybody's cup of tea for that matter. Is that it's more important for me to be honest with myself than to believe in something because of the fact that it sounds good or brings me comfort. I find comfort in honesty, which is why it makes sense for me that this journey and mindfulness and meditation speaks so much to me, because I find deep comfort in honesty, not deep comfort in telling myself something fanciful or something that I hope or want to happen, or I desperately want to happen. And I think that that's what happens to us many times. The fear of not knowing drives us to believe in things that honestly not only don't make sense, but we're actually being dishonest with ourselves. But again, to each their own, and I know that there are different strokes for different folks. These are observations that I've made that brought me to the place where I am, and it's things that I feel are true, and I will be pointing them out, but not so much to knock people off of their paths. It's just to get people to think about certain things, and especially if there are people that are struggling with things they're trying to swallow or trying to believe that just don't quite feel right or make sense. So there's not always rhyme and reason to why things happen in our lives. If we think stress in our life is a mistake, or that something has gone wrong rather than attending to what's happening, we'll get stuck in the story. Stress is a part of life, and resisting it just creates more tension and stress. This is Sebene Selassie. So Sebene is a teacher and writer and a meditation expert, and I think she might even be a psychologist, but I know for sure at least she's a teacher and author and writer. I kind of feel like anybody who goes down this path, even if they don't get a degree, you kind of become somewhat of a, what they call it, I forgot what they call it when you don't go through something like formally, but you kind of pick up the traits on the side or whatever. So I feel like to some degree I am a psychologist, even like a surface level psychologist. Out of respect for all the true psychologists out there with degrees. But everything that I just said comes directly from Sebene as a quote, and this was a part of the course. I'll tell you a little bit about Sebene. She's a 3-time cancer survivor, and she encountered meditation, I think she said in high school, but it wasn't until she was diagnosed with cancer at 34 that it became like something that was like really vital to her life. And she also went through a lot since she was younger, because she's an Ethiopian immigrant, and she saw a lot of unfortunate things in Ethiopia when she was young. She even went to some kind of camps, I guess similar to like concentration camps, but it was another name to it. But it was very tough. What she took note of was how some people, everybody was dealing with same kind of circumstances, but there were some people who were able to manage their stress and turn it into, mindfulness and things that kept them going or kept them focused. And there was other people that were totally succumbed to it. And she found that interesting, how the mind could deal with these things 2 different ways. So between that and then her family moved to Washington, D.C., and they really felt out of place in an all-white neighborhood that had some racism going on. So she dealt with a lot, and it led her to a place of self-care and meditation that is pretty amazing. If you get a chance, check her out. Her name is in the notes that I put up at the top. But this is her quote right from this course. And I'll say it one more time because I think it's so valuable. There's not always rhyme and reason to why things happen in our lives. If we think stress in our life is a mistake or that something has gone wrong rather than attending to what's happening, we'll get stuck in the story. Stress is a part of life, and resisting it just creates more tension and stress. Sebene Selassie. Hey, Nicole, thanks for joining me. Hey, Bunky, thanks for joining me. By the way, the music that you hear in the background is a new song that I just released recently, I guess about a week ago now. And that song is called Breath of Life. Check it out if you get a chance on my website, Aaron Hill TV. Click on the music tab, or you can go to my YouTube page and watch the video as well. Hey, Kurt, thanks for joining me. So the next thing on here is cultivating the ability to be with discomfort and allowing the feelings that come with stress allows us to be with all experiences in our lives more fully. Cultivating the ability to be with discomfort and allowing the feelings that come with stress allows us to be with all experiences in our lives more fully. One of the, yet another thing that's all a part of my journey, even my journey through spirituality and the different paths, was like, I realized that if a path wasn't preparing you for acceptance over expectation, when it came to dealing with things in life, it wasn't actually preparing you properly for life or death. And in many ways, I feel like a lot of our most mainstream paths today fall under that category. Like, I'm not going to go into it deeply just because it's not the topic of this video. But what I started watching from a psychological perspective was how there would be people that I was close to that would have trouble dealing with the inevitabilities of life, and even would tell themselves things that I was familiar with even from my childhood, but they just stopped making sense. And they wouldn't be able to actually just be with what they were feeling. So it took away from the quality of their life. And I've always naturally been a person that has allowed for what I was feeling and been relatively even keel. That's the other reason why this self-care journey that I'm on and this particular approach is so resonant with me, because it's who I am, and in the evolution of where I've been as a person, it just makes all the sense in the world as I've decided to go down this journey. So yeah, just being with it, cultivating the ability to be with it, I think is the key to dying in peace. Real talk. And that's what I think about all the time, or that's what I've thought about over time, for a while. I think the only way to prepare for the inevitabilities of life is to understand how to be with it, not how to expect some grand outcome all the time. Real talk. And again, I know that that's what some people need, but I think I guess I'm starting to get to the point, or I've gotten to the point over the years where, and I don't mean this offensively, I feel like that's just a level of immaturity that we have with trying to just, deal with the inevitables. And again, I understand it, because life is, life has its ups and downs, and in many ways, there's a lot of aspects of life that feel and seem unfair. But I just realized the value in this, the ability to be with it, whatever you're feeling. It allows you to just have a better quality of life and experience your experiences more fully and deeply. Ask yourself what's happening. Name and acknowledge the emotion accompanying the stress without attaching the story to it. Overanalyzing it or moving to problem solving, just be with it. I am a huge analyzer, a huge problem solver. The funny thing is, I've learned in this part of my life that it's the key to all my success. Like, it's the reason why I've been so successful with so many things in life. It is also the very thing that, under different circumstances, especially stressful circumstances, where you need to just be with things because you need to allow for time that things to change, or you need to not expect that they are going to change. Overanalyzing and problem solving just works against you in that way. And it's just that there's pros and cons to everything, so you have to know how to apply balance. I've been really appreciating that about this part of my journey. It was about maybe 3 weeks ago where I started noticing that, like, in my dreams at night, the continuation of my stress and anxiety was playing out, where I would dream what I was dreaming, and it would always wind up being these places that brought me anxiety or certain fears. And when I would wake up, as in tune as I am to reality, I think so, at least. And as much as I'm always processing in order to stay in tune, like, my whole body and my heart, my feeling, like, everything was still wrapped up in the experience, even when I knew it wasn't real. Knew it was totally not real, but my body was still experiencing every aspect of it. Now, I started to understand why that was, because one of the traits that I have, that again has its pros and cons like everything else, is that I play out hypotheticals in my mind. Like, I'll take one scenario, say I'm supposed to meet someone and we're supposed to talk about something. I'll start playing out in my mind all the different ways that conversation could go. And then I start rehearsing, like, how I would respond or how I would feel about it. Now, that has had tremendous benefits because it's allowed me to really show up in life and deal with things in a really good way, because I've already re-rehearsed, like, all positive ways of dealing with things. But where I realize it's not good is when I'm dealing with something that brings anxiety or stress, and when I'm rehearsing the stress that it will bring me and then how I'll deal with it. Because if it's something that still would be really tough to deal with, then I keep experiencing in a loop fashion the anxiety, the depression, the stress that would come from that. And especially if I feel like it's highly likely. That's the other thing too, because I don't just do this just to do it. If I really feel like it's highly likely, then I'll try to prepare myself. That's good, but I've realized the downside of that, if you don't cap it off at a certain point, is that you'll just stay in this loop of emotions that, even though you haven't faced the thing, you're experiencing, like, these emotions over and over and over that are unhealthy for you. So now I've learned to, like, be able to look at that hypothetical or process and then stop it at some point and not stay on it. Or, like, what's coming up in the notes in a few minutes is that, you know, you can just be with it, label it for what it is as far as how you feel, but not overanalyze it and not have the story linked to it and go down, down that path. So ask yourself what's happening, name and acknowledge the emotion accompanying the stress without attaching the story to it, overanalyzing it, or moving to problem solving, because that's the other thing too. I'm a person who I'm like, now I'm present in my emotions and what I'm feeling, but I don't dwell. I move straight to problem solving, and that's not helpful if there's not actually an easy way to solve it, or if the solution requires patience or time. It's just not helpful. And that's what I've learned. And that's helped me big time in this last, like, 3 weeks or so. Try to stay connected with what's arising, even if it's uncomfortable, knowing that you're building the capacity to tolerate what's unpleasant in order to adapt and grow. Same thing. Just being with it. The tolerance, to me, is what allows us to live our life in death and peace, to be honest. Like, to face life. And even, it's another biggie for me that I came up with over the years. Like, most people can understand not letting bad things get you down. But I'm also at a place of like not letting good things take you out of your place of peace either. Like staying even keel, being able to celebrate, being able to be excited, but not too over the top, because I notice what winds up happening is that, in fact, my favorite entrepreneur and motivator online said this. He said this about dealing with something on social media. He said, if you're too attached to the cheering, that you get, then you will be devastated by the booing. And that's like, man, that's it right there. Like staying even keel, not being so attached to the positives that it means that the inevitable negatives that will come are like huge devastating blows. And that's to me another one of the things that some of our spiritual paths do, because we get way over the top, and then when things aren't going well, then we don't even know how to understand it at times. Like, how is this even possible? But we still know it's possible. It's this weird cognitive dissonance. So the next thing is, if the discomfort becomes too much to take, if the discomfort becomes too much, take deep breaths to relax the body. Right back to the beginning where we started this talk. Like now I'm getting to the point where I try to do this even if I'm not dealing with anything, like while I'm talking like this for 10 or 15 minutes, and then I just stop and just take a deep breath, because again, we're not doing it enough, and that definitely helps to keep our pressure levels down and all these kind of things. And so discomfort many times is it's too much to deal with, but taking a deep breath allows you to relax back into it and to feel a sense of peace. Asking yourself, can I be with this, helps to broaden your perspectives about what you're feeling. I love that too, because she was saying that like the answer doesn't even have to be yes. It doesn't even have to be yes. It could be no, but it allows you to at least step out of your own experience and see that there's other ways to feel this or view this. So a lot of times, even if it just distracts you off of your pain from it, it makes you feel better. And then in other times, if you do need to take a different perspective, you've got your wedge there that helps you to get out. Ask yourself, can I appreciate what I'm feeling? Now that's a deep one. That's another one, again, can't be attached if the answer is no, because that's a deep one to say. What I thought about when I was, listening to this in this course, and they said that, was like, I kind of reframed it. Instead of saying, can I appreciate what I'm feeling? I reframed it to like, can I appreciate the fact that I am feeling, and just being with it, being mindful, not judging, and just trying to, work on my acceptance. That, I think, is an easier thing to answer as far as saying yes, that you can appreciate. And then last but not least, take the time to appreciate yourself each time you spend a few minutes being mindful, meditating, or breathing deeply. And one more time, I would invite you, like, right where you are, whether you're driving, like, no matter what you're doing, let's just take 3 deep breaths to close out this session. Let's take a deep breath in and out. Take a deep breath in and out. One more deep breath in and out. I swear I feel better every time I do that. So that is today's lesson that I went through, and that you joined me for, how to face tough stuff. Check out the 10% Happier course if you can, or app on your phone. I think it's great, and it's good for all walks of life, no matter what your discipline or spiritual or religious path is. Like, and I love it because I see this is where humanity is going. More and more people are resorting to alternative form, and I wouldn't say it's alternative. Like, this has been, but I guess what I mean by alternative is like to the normal mainstream kind of paths and approaches to healing or understanding life or dealing with the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows of life. Our world is becoming more secular. And of course, from a secular humanist perspective, I love it. So yeah, that's the lesson for today. Again, I hope you enjoyed this. If you like the music in the background, that's called Breath of Life. It's my newest piano meditation that you can check out on my YouTube channel and listen to. It'll be on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, all that kind of good stuff real soon. I just uploaded it, but I found out my distributor that I normally use doesn't accept meditation tracks and spoken word tracks and stuff like that. So they don't want to heal. So I'm just kidding. So I'm going to upload it to another, using another distributor. So it'll be there in, several days, and look out for that. But in the meantime, you can experience it right away on my website, AaronHillTV.com. Click on the music tab, and then also on my YouTube channel, Aaron Hill TV. I hope you enjoyed this, and stay tuned in the next few minutes for the word of the day, which will be mindfulness. Peace and be well.